Hello everyone and welcome to the next episode of the Common Mistakes series. I think it's episode 5, and in this one we will be talking about something that I call a loss of volume. It is part of the massing. Pretty much massing is the basis of the figure drawing, so everything in one way or another will be part of the massing, but in this case, it is quite a significant part of massing. So I will be talking about massing a little bit as well. But let me come back to the first example I have here on the left. Massing, as we described so many times, and I will keep coming back to it and tell you again and again, it is so important. The massing essentially is visualizing complex forms through simple geometric shapes. So, for example, in this drawing by one of my students, this is quite a good drawing. You can see how the head has been masked as a ball. And you can see this line in the back, which is kind of flattened. So you see that curve there is energy going up and then kind of flattens as it hits the back of the head. So there's some very, very nice massing attempts there. You can see how the neck, the outline of the neck, suggests a cylinder, and then the top of the back is this curved line, which again is just indicating almost like a contour line that the rib cage is actually is tilted slightly forward, and there's the meeting point where the back curves up and then the neck curves in the opposite direction. You have that the median line of the neck there. Also, the 7th cervical vertebra is indicated where kind of which is a very important landmark. Both of the deltoids are indicated as a ball-like shape, which is obviously adjusted to the shape of the deltoids as they need it. Now the problem with this drawing is that somewhere underneath the scapula, which is nicely indicated there, it actually becomes a different drawing. This is one drawing, and what's below is a different drawing. You can see how it kind of doesn't fit. And the reason for that is as this person was drawing and doing very nice massing and just throwing up the shapes, somewhere along the line, going towards the bottom of the rib cage, they forgot about the rib cage. So you can see how that suddenly lost the volume. Suddenly, you don't see the massing, you don't see the shape of the rib cage. Now, what that brought about is roughly at about that point there, suddenly the proportion of the whole figure has changed. The bony structure on which we so depend suddenly went out the window, and so the external oblique is, kind of just somewhere, and the pelvis shrunk in comparison to the rib cage, and is in the wrong position. So that is just one very, very fast example of how massing can not only make but also destroy drawing. So at this stage where this is at, a person essentially has two alternatives. One, you will consider that this line here on the left is the correct outline of the rib cage, in which case you have to change all of the right hand side, and then you make the pelvis fit. Or you decide that this side here is the correct line, and then you have to change all of this. So I'm going to do just a quick sketch following what we already have there. So there's a kind of a gentle curve in the spine. We have the deltoids there, and the other one is kind of somewhere on the side. So for this example, I will go with that side as being correct. So we have the neck somewhere there, the 7th cervical vertebrae, and then we have the head. But the main thing here is actually, let me just, so I indicate that line roughly where that is. So if I draw in here the rib cage, as we know, that would be about the size of the rib cage. Now, as so many times I said, we don't actually do medical anatomy. This is anatomy for artists. So a rough outline of the rib cage will suffice. You don't have to draw in the ribs, as long as you know the proportions. Till you have the proportions, obviously you do detailed studies of the rib cage and you do put in the ribs. But later on, as you progress, as long as you can mass it correctly, you don't need the details of the ribs. Anyway, so you can see on this side where the other shoulder is, suddenly I cannot draw the line in, because that would actually collide here with the rib cage. What you have to do is, and I kind of assume that this is correct here, that's the external oblique, I will have to, from the 7th cervical vertebra, I will have to move the spine slightly to the side so that I don't lose the volume. And this will be the other side of the pelvis. We still get the buttocks very nicely indicated with this shape, geometric shape. We got the sacroiliac crest just there, and probably I would suggest that this person is standing on this leg, and this other one is kind of loosely just coming down. So that's essentially what happens. If you decide that that's the correct line, you have to preserve this volume of the rib cage, and that will dictate that this line on the right has to come up further out, and that will give you the correct size of the pelvis in relationship to the rib cage. Also, what it does, it works out, and this is another very, very important part of knowing where the bones are, where the bottom of the rib cage is, because that pretty much connects up with the pelvis, and you know that this distance here is about right when the body is turned that way, when it's in this bend. So very, very important. Now, if you had gone for the other side, let's see how we have it here. If you had gone for the other side, in that case the spine would be roughly in the, see this lovely line here across, how we indicated just the tilt of the pelvis. That's very, very nice. So if this line is correct, then that volume here on the right cannot go all the way down, and it would create these folds, these skinny folds, how the body bulges, and this external oblique will go all the way out here to accommodate this tilt. And you preserve the buttocks as they are, and you continue there. Just the indication there. But so if you go with that line being accurate, then the sacroiliac crest shifts. You can see the direction, how it changed from that orientation to that orientation, and the whole pose changes. Suddenly you have a different character. That's why the drawing doesn't work. The top and the bottom are two separate drawings. Now let's have a look at the next one. Just change the paper. Now this next one is a very, very typical example, the reclining nude. The loss of volume is pretty much destroys the whole drawing. First of all, what happens, the rib cage suddenly after this ridge, which is not that far off where it's supposed to be, suddenly drops, and I don't care how slim the person lying down is, I don't care how deep the belly actually sinks, the combination of the bottom of the ribs and the front pelvic point will not change. So the relationship there needs to work. What happens in between, the muscles, as you know, the muscles are fickle, they tend to, sag off the bones. That's all fine, and we all have all different builds and different amount of muscles. That's all good. But like I said, the relationship of the bottom of the ribs and the front pelvic point or the high pelvic point, that's given. That will not change. Another thing that happened here because of that is the distance, like we said in the earlier drawing, the distance of the bottom of the ribs to the top of the pelvis has suddenly grown, and that's what creates that elongated shape. And as this person traveled down the drawing, suddenly you can see the lower leg has grown hugely. So all that, you make the mistake over there, and it trickles down to the end of the drawing. So essentially, what happens with the relationship of the rib cage with the person who's lying down, the rib cage is actually tilted that way, and the pelvis accommodating is tilted that way. Now this looks slightly exaggerated, but what happens in reality, and then the head is somewhere there. What happens in reality, the bottom of the skull is touching the ground, then you have the neck, the seventh cervical, the shoulder blades touching, and then it all comes up following the shape of the rib cage. And the rib cage ends somewhere there. That's the spine going through, and this here is the pelvis with the sacroiliac crest, and that's again where it comes down to touch the ground, and of course the buttocks are on the ground. So there's this curvature flat where the scapula are from roughly about the seventh cervical vertebra, which is on the front is the pit of the neck, sternum there, and then you have the rib cage, and then from then on, that's roughly where the great trochanter is, which is the top of the bone of the lower leg, somewhere there, and then you have the leg. So essentially, what happened there, if I am to attempt a quick sketch of that, so somewhere there is the opening, that's the sternum in the front, it's the opening of the neck, which is quite nicely indicated, and then we have this side of the rib cage, and then the other side of the rib cage goes somewhere like this. Now this high point here is indicated there, but there's more to it afterwards. As it recedes, it comes down. So that's the sternum, and as we know, the spine flows below. It's quite wide in this lumbar area. Let me see, which way are we facing? That way. And then from then on, you have the pelvis, which is tilted that way. So from here on, the belly, the belly button can drop off, but essentially the high point or the front point of the pelvis needs to remain in relation to that, and that's somewhere that's the check for your perspective. This is roughly, unless there's a twist in the body, it doesn't seem to be there, doesn't seem to be a twist in the body, it's just a straight line. And from this pelvis, then you got the cords in the back, and then since it's a female, the pelvis is a little bit positioned a little bit higher than it would be in a man. Of course, you have the breasts somewhere there. This one falling on the other side. This one is on this side. The shape of the nipples often contributes to describing the way the breasts are actually positioned, or the gravity that that affects them. Obviously, somewhere there is the deltoideus with the biceps coming from in there, coming down, and then we have the elbow, the forearm. There's a bit of a dip there. So this is what I'm doing here. Really, is I'm recreating that drawing, and I'm recreating it out of my mind. But essentially, what I'm doing, I'm massing out of my mind, and that's what you need to achieve. So there's the front, from which we know most of the muscles of the front of the thigh reside. And this will, just a few contour lines will give us quite a nice, there's a turn there. In this particular view, I would say that the lower leg overlaps the thigh, so that's positioning that connection there in the middle is not going to work very well. It kind of needs to be, this leg needs to be on top, and then the thigh comes down there, and this is kind of flat. And obviously they have the head there somewhere touching the ground, the neck, and the other arm coming up. There would be a connection also there that comes down to join the pectoralis major, that is inserted into the arm, into the bone of the upper arm. So anyway, that's another example how the loss of volume can affect and often affects the reclining nude. Where the loss of volume actually destroys the shape. So let's have a look at the next example. I believe there's a couple more that deal with the rib cage in an upright position. Yeah, that's right. So there again, very nice. Kind of very nice massing. You can see the deltoids very nicely described. Also the scapulae kind of put in, but then suddenly all this shrinks down. You lose the volume of the. I like to put in a slight curve to the no matter what, slight curve into the spine. The 7th cervical vertebrae, and then we have the deltoids coming out. There's the neck, and then we have the trapezius just there on the top, another deltoid was there. And then I have the triceps in the back of the arm. Okay, so we got to a point where now I need to decide which side am I going to take of that drawing to be accurate, because if I do this left side, I draw in the latissimus dorsi curling from just there coming to overlap the trapezius there at the bottom. If this is correct, right, then I need to transfer the other side of the rib cage, which is somewhere there. I need to transfer it to the front. And I kind of already did that. I think I positioned that arm quite a fair distance out, just in order to accommodate for that, precisely for that motion. There's the sacroiliac crest, there's the top of the pelvis there, the other side. And then we have the all this set up on the side, the buttocks somewhere there. So you see, you can't bring this line in because you lose all of that. That line almost suggests, I mean, there's a suggestion here, which is the bottom of the scapula, where it comes in. That should be the latissimus dorsi overlapping the trapezius there. Curling kind of that way, and then you have the external oblique coming out, gluteus medius going to the great trochanter. There's a dimple there for the starts of tensor fasciae latae. So that's another example. You can see how just about there, up to there, that's all in one understanding, that's one drawing, and then suddenly it changes to the different drawing, and that's where it's lost. That one there it's a very beautiful massing there, just a cube, just a rectangle there for the upper part of the chest, which is of course the length of the sternum, and then despite of the fact that this side, or that side I should say, of the rib cage is indicated quite nicely, this side actually disappears, and that creates the shrinkage in the abdominal muscles, rectus abdominis, and suddenly the pelvis is lost. So this person didn't even continue with drawing the pelvis because it just got lost. So you got all that. And what happens here? There's this beautiful change of rhythm. That's the belly button. And what happens on this side? Well, that volume cannot disappear. You still have to have all of this stuff. Still have to account for the muscles. And that's this change of rhythm here, where you cannot just keep it inside. It has to, I suspect this, actually the hand of, wow, it's quite nice. This is very nice. It's a nice pose. The neck wouldn't just be a straight line. I would say there would be a tendency towards a cylindrical, and then you have this other arm. Oh, this goes even further up. That's where the perhaps turn that way. Not clear. And then from there you have roughly on that border. See how I did that nipple stretched out as because the arm is lifted, so all that is stretched out. Whereas this one here, being relaxed, is just round. So things like that really add to the description of of the muscles. And perhaps the leg going in the front from that point. So there you go, just a quick sketch there. So all this, that volume needs to be preserved, otherwise the problem trickles down the pipeline and you will not catch it. It just falls apart, creates a drawing within a drawing, and the unity is lost. So there it is. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Common Mistakes, which was dedicated to the loss of volume, which is really closely associated with massing. If you want a transcription of what he talked about, it's on the blog. You can have a look at the printed version with stills, where I did a few other drawings as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you with the next episode.